Hey, Satanico here once again for Godlovescomics, and this is going to be part 3 of the saga of Swamp Thing. Part 3 of my audio reading of Saga of Swamp Thing. And this, once again, is a cover by Steve Bissett and John Totleben. And it looks like Swamp Thing, once again carrying the bones of Alec Holland. Even though I don't know if that's his actual skeleton or just, once again, just symbolic of it, because that's what he's been facing through several of the prior issues. But this was number 28 from September 1984. Swamp Thing, created by Lynn Wein and Bernie Wrightson. And this is titled The Burial. And the creative team has changed slightly just for this issue. Once again, of course, it's Alan Moore, but in this issue, it's all drawn by Sean McManus. I guess Bissett and Totleben needed a little bit of a break, and Sean McManus is also known for his subsequent work on Sandman. I do believe he passed away as well recently. I hope I'm wrong about that, but it seems to ring a bell that I remember that, unfortunately. And then the other big change is that this isn't edited by Lynn Wein, it's edited by Karen Berger, who would go on to be the major, overseer and executive editor of DC Vertigo, which I believe Saga of Swamp Thing eventually becomes a Vertigo book. So that's kind of telling right there. How deep? How deep does it have to be? The soil is wet, the digging difficult. And I have been digging for such a long time. It looks nice in autumn, doesn't it? You can see once again, always beautiful scenes of flora and fauna in the swamp. This is a little less detailed maybe, or a little less textured, and yet still textured and still detailed and still really beautiful. Incidentally, you're not looking too bad yourself. Isn't this funny, what's happening to your skin? Has it happened before? No, I was not in touch with the seasons before. Anything dropped off yet? Oh, hey, look. What's that, a bird? A blue heron. Abby, things are going well with you? Oh, so you noticed a change. Listen, I really ought to apologize the way I was acting a couple of weeks back. All that handwriting and stuff. You shouldn't take any notice. It's the white hair. It makes me look more distraught than I am. So you and Matt. Me and Matt are fine. He's really picked up, He doesn't just sit around anymore, and the drinking stopped. He's out looking for a house for us. Did I tell you that? A house? No. The money is your job. At Elysium Lawns? Oh, that's tremendous. Just the way it's working out and everything. After that incident with the demon creature, I thought it would all be, well, I don't know what I thought, but it was amazing. They just explained everything away as mass hysteria, stuff like that. So the home's just carrying on as normal, whatever normal is. Oh, say, I was meaning to ask you, have you noticed how long it takes for the flies to die off this time of year? I believe that's a ghost of Alec Holland, and it has shocked Swamp Thing, as you can tell by his expression. Our motel is full of them. I wondered if it was, I don't know, something to do with the glass house effect, or, Alec? Alec, what did you see? Something or... Don't keep calling me Alec. I'm sorry, I'm not Alec Holland. Alec Holland is dead. Plot. But not buried. How deep do you need to bury the past before it will stay dead? Where are you? What are you? You're not Holland. I'm not Holland. Holland died. Died in an explosion. I have his consciousness, his memories. But he is dead. I will not be haunted by myself. McManus draws a little bit more cartoony Swamp Thing than you would see from Bissett. Wait, don't go. Come back, please. Please come back. But he didn't come back. And so I had to follow him. Follow him through the luminous dusk. Follow him along the brittle paths of autumn. Through pools of cold water. Follow him here. Here, where it began. Home. Still standing, but barely. Naked rooms filthy with wet ash. A soiled shred of upholstery. Its faded pattern, once familiar. Hey, Skinny, did you make it in this morning? Well, yeah, of course I did. The bed? Oh, yeah, I made the bed. Knew it. You never tuck it properly on the side. I always know when you've made it. It's like you've signed the quilt in the bottom right corner. Oh, God, that's the worst. Let me do it. You have to lift the mattress right up. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to look really good when you get old. Ha. When I was 17, I remember saying, you know, you're going to look really good when you're 25. Well, you do. No, I mean your bone structure. You're going to be beautiful for a long while. I'd rather you wore me out before I was 30. Couldn't we be rich for a long while instead? Yeah, why not? Listen, if this biorestorative formula pans out, we might even have enough to be rich and beautiful. Yeah, well, I'll be rich and beautiful, and you'll be rich and skinny. You cold? No. Are you reading? No. This is a place where, of course, dynamite went off and killed Alec, and she was killed subsequently by a bullet. She was shot. I'm not even quite sure by whom. And then he's come back. He saw a little fragment of shirt that was not destroyed, and he's having memories of what it was like between Alec and his wife. just prior to their deaths. And although he's not Alec, obviously these memories are still very meaningful to him, or to the consciousness that is embodied within Swamp Thing, Alec's consciousness. Home, where the heart is, where we lived, me and Linda, where we died. But Dr. Holland, we came to you in good faith. Save it for the boys in blue, Ferret. My wife and I'll sleep a lot better knowing you three are behind bars. Sorry, we can't accommodate you, Doc. Bruno. No. Take him. He'll not bother us, Ferret. Swell. Then we can plant our little surprise package and hack away from this dump. No, stop. Agreed. I want to be miles from here when our gracious gift blows. Holland, wake up. You must wake up. Wake up and it will all turn out differently. Holland, please. Feels like they dropped a mountain on my head. Hey, seems my playmates have decided to skip out. I wonder why. Oh my dear God. That thing is ticking. Gotta try to defuse it before. Boom. Well, I thought he was thrown, at least in the initial explanation, even by Alan Moore. He was just kind of thrown into the swamp by the blast, but in this version, he's kind of on fire, and looks like he almost runs into the swamp himself. Either way, he was basically dead already. There, it's done. All done. But where is the body? For hours I sat and watched and waited. Nothing. Almost nothing. And this will be Swamp Thing seeing himself emerge. Some really cool panels there. I like that. Almost nothing. You can see me, hear me, but I have so much to tell you. Your future, things that you must know. It just tells them to be quiet and points. The mud. Something under the mud. Nothing. An empty space makes empty gestures. And I have dug an empty grave to fit a vanished body. But that is what you were trying to tell me, isn't it? The body didn't vanish. The mind. It was the mind that vanished. Vanished into the greenery that absorbed the spoiled flesh, creating a new organism, creating me. The mind vanished. and the flesh vanished, but the bones remained. So he did find Alec's skeleton after all. Down here in the cold, all those dark years, you must have been lonely. Come, I have prepared a place for you. Let us hope that it is deep enough. I guess deep enough that he can truly rest in peace and not reemerge like so many other comic book characters. This is really Alan Moore. His first issue, number 20, was called Loose Ends, and he was really tying up the plot from the previous 19 issues, trying to tie up a lot of loose ends. But now he's sort of come back to that, and he's trying to tie up this final crucial loose end of separating Swamp Thing from Alec Holland and really burying Alec Holland once and for all. Not just physically burying his skeleton, but metaphorically as well, symbolically, I suppose. There's no marker. Crack. It's one little twisted branch. He's there. I know that he is there. I know that he is smiling. But I don't look back. Next, Love and Death. So that was a very simple, straightforward story. A lot more simple, a lot more direct than almost all of the previous Alan Moore issues. But very important, and still poignant. You can see, sort of the ghost of Alec smiling slightly and just leaving that sort of twisted branch buried in that little mound of, that grave and that mound of mud and swamp. So effectively burying the memory of Alec Holland, so Swamp Thing is free maybe at last. But something is definitely wrong with Abby. Even though she seemed relatively normal, if you saw, if you read or listened to the prior episode, segment 2 of the, of the reading, at the very end, Abby was picked up in a car by Matt, but Matt had already been in a car crash and was near death before he was possessed by something. So when he picked her up, the car was repaired, Matt was repaired, everything seemed as normal, but obviously there was something very, very suspicious and very, very wrong, and you can see very likely that is coming to pass here. In fact, I believe that is the eye of a fly, if I'm correct, because that's what kind of encompassed, that's kind of what went inside Matt and embodied him and took him over. I may be reading this wrong, but you can see the eyelashes at the top and at the bottom, so I think that's the case. She ripped all of her clothes off, tearing them up. They were dirty. They had touched her skin. She tried to burn them, but her hands were shaking, and the matches just kept going out. In truth, she was a little crazy by this time. It was the smell. She couldn't get rid of the smell. In the shower, she used up all the soap, the shampoo, the bubble bath, the perfume. The smell was still there. Have you ever burned an insect with a magnifying glass? Just once, long ago, when you were a kid and didn't know any better? There you know. There you know it. You know the smell. When the soap wouldn't get rid of it, she went to the kitchen and fetched the wire brush and she used for scraping potatoes. 20 minutes later, she passed out. 20 whole minutes. Even then, she could still smell it. Says made in the USA, that brush by Ostrander and Truman. So that would probably be writer John Ostrander and artist Timothy Truman. That's a little tip of the hat to them. And she has taken a brush that you clean potatoes and scrubbed her skin off. So something is very wrong. And I would think this image would certainly convey that. And we're back with Steve Bissett and John Totleben as the artist. The dream has started out so nicely. She was out in the swamp, and he was there, and they were friends again. Hello? Hello, Abby. It has been a long time. I missed you. I thought, well, after the last time I saw you, I thought you didn't like me anymore. I'm sorry, I know I made you mad. I kept calling you Alec. And I know that you're not Alec, but I can't get used to calling you anything else. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot, I know, but Abby, it doesn't matter. Not anymore. As you can see, the credits are actually pretty clever in their insect theme. We've got Alan Moore, the fly, the artist or the centipede, I guess. Karen Berger is the black ant. Or, I don't know. Somebody is the black ant. Tatiana Wood is either the beetle or John Costanza is the beetle. You can call me Alec, if it's easier. I can? Oh, God. I thought you hated me. I thought just when things were going right for me, I was going to lose you. Oh, Alec. And then they were both laughing. And then she hugged him. And he hugged her back. And she couldn't breathe, but that was okay. He whirled her around. Her feet were no longer touching the ground. She buried her face in his chest and breathed in the scent of life and loam and autumn. It smelled good. Not like this. Not like this at all. This is once again a dream, but, the scent. She loves Swamp Thing, of course, and that insect scent is most likely from Matt, her actual husband. And here we go. The dream twisted then, folding in upon itself and blossoming into new shapes. The light changed as if a cloud of blowflies had suddenly obscured the sun. And she was with her husband, and he said he had 3 surprises for her. Oh, Matt, come on, what? Guess. You've discovered you're heir of the throne of Dubrovnia. Nope. You've joined the Moonies. You're really Alan Funt, and for the past 3 years I've been on candid camera. Close, but no cigar. I want a divorce. Fair enough. So, you'll be sorry, Matt. If you don't tell me what this is, the surprise is about, you'll be chairbound. Oh, okay. If you're going to get violent, you want to know what the surprise is? Well, we're right now parked outside of it. And that is quite a house. I don't know if they have the financial means for that. Nice place, huh? Put a down payment on it yesterday. Want to take a look inside? Come on. One foot in front of the other. See, it's easy. And so they had gone inside. Inside it looked even better. Matt, all this furniture, these carpets. They came with the house. The people who owned this place didn't want the trouble and expensive moving them, I guess. Come on, let's look around. The living room, the kitchen, bedroom. The dream wavered here. Here was where the bad thing was hidden. A sudden scent of smoldering insect flesh, acrid and bitter behind the nostrils. And then it was gone. Matt, how did you find this place? We can't afford anything like this. We only have my job at Elysium Lawns. That's my second surprise. Come on back to the car. Alma's gone. The scent? Almost. Tentative feelers brushed against the skin of her delirium. There was the beating of miniature wings. There were arms with 2 elbows. Here was where the bad thing had really started. Well, we're here. What do you think of it? What do I think of what? What do you think of the place where I work? Black River Recorporations. Where you work? You have a job? Matthew, my boy. Eric, Abby, this is Eric Loveday. Eric's my boss. Eric, this is my wife, Abigail. Lovely name for a lovely young lady. Come on inside, Abby. Meet the whole sick crew. No, not inside. Don't go inside. The smell was worse inside. Inside, just for a moment, she had seen where the smell was coming from. Everybody's through here, Abigail. You know the way. Your hubby here got you his job. Did you tell her, Matthew? I thought I'd leave it to you, Eric. You tell it better. This isn't good. Matthew here was driving by about a week back now, notices the place for the first time, thinks, guess I'll take a look. This next bit is funny. I was expecting somebody from the job agency. Fill a vacancy we had, right? So I see Matthew pull up. I storm straight on out there. Hey, you realize you're an hour late? So, everyone is dead? So then Matthew says here, excuse me a moment, Eric. Abby, are you all right? Fine. Just such a surprise. I fetch Abby some coffee, Eric. Right away, Matthew. The coffee came and she drank it. Everything was ordinary. She met Gus Pritchett, who handled invoicing, Betty Montclair, who couldn't move her face because of a stroke. She met Sally Parks, whose name sounded familiar, Mark Newell, pretty office junior who blushed when he shook her hand. The whole sick crew. And then she and Matt were outside again, walking back to the car. She didn't tell him what she'd seen when Eric Loveday opened the door. He didn't tell her what recorporations meant. And her only question was the one that she should never have asked. Matt, you said there were 3 surprises. It'll probably make me go dizzy again, but what's the 3rd surprise? Oh, I think I'll save that one for later. Let's go home. 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 It was her own home, and she and Matt owned it, and it was beautiful. She wasn't thinking about anything else. Why wasn't she thinking about anything else? And Matt had changed so much. All the weakness and despair had gone, leaving a new strength and unfamiliar confidence. And then they went inside, and then there was no. And then there was no, it didn't happen. The bad thing. She didn't want to think about it, but there was that bug taste in the back of her mouth, and no, she dug her heels into the flanks of her nightmare and made it go a different way. And then for a moment, she wasn't in her own dream anymore. She was in someone else's dream, his dream. He'd found a bird fallen in black grass that was sharp enough to cut your finger. Wretched and smashed, it lay like a bloodied shuttlecock. It was dead, but it was moving. Why was it moving? His hand reached out to touch it. Its eyes regarded him, milky and opaque. Then someone dropped a dark polished stone into her dream pool, shattering the image with ripples like conjurers' hoops, and the smell was everywhere. Terrebonne Parish Public Library. We're still in Louisiana, of course. Even when she had gone over to the library in Houma, where nothing strange ever happened and reality was alphabetically filed, even there, excuse me, is there a section where you keep your psychology books? Psychology or psychiatry? Well, I don't know. I'm working with autistic kids and I was looking for psychology over in the far corner. Right, thanks. Now, something very interesting that I just noticed. Okay. There's criminal pathology on the top shelf. She's on the shelf with autism. Below that, childhood something or other, psychology maybe. And then below that is insect fear, which is a very unlikely shelf. But it has things about mosquito fear, grasshopper spit fiend, and leeches and slugs. So I think that plays more into the theme of this episode, this issue, rather than any actual books that should be in a library, or at least be shelved anywhere near psychology, even in a small library like this. The Siege, the Profession of Violence. Oh, shh. Deadlier than the male. Sally Park. Deadlier than the male. The Facts About Sally Parks by Dr. Niles Ritchie. She had driven home with the book on the seat beside her, face down. When she got it back to the house, she read it, skimming frantically. It was all about Sally Parks, whose name had sounded familiar. Sally Parks, who in the last 3 months of her 26 brief years had done many interesting and notable things. She had killed 15 people, employer's wife, teenage daughter, her own boyfriend, her boyfriend's mother, 2 police officers, 1 newsboy, with a variety of weapons, gun, letter opener, tire iron, wire coat hanger, for no reason at all before being shot dead by police on the night of August 7th, 1962. That Sally Parks, who 22 years later had a nice little job typing memos for Black River Recorporations. Why hadn't she asked? Why hadn't she asked what recorporations meant? What about the rest of them? Betty Montclair? Was she dead too? Eric Loveday, Gus Pritchett, Mark Newell, Matt? The shadows of the room began to spiral and whirlpool, and she clutched desperately at her train of thought, a black thread in a blacker landscape. Matt was her husband. He just didn't act like her husband. He hung around with dead people and pulled jobs and houses out of nowhere. He was different. How long had he been different? He'd been different since the night of the trouble up at Elysium Lawns, the night they had argued. But even before that, since they were in West Virginia, in fact, what had happened in West Virginia? And deep inside her, the bad thing starts to crawl toward the light. And she knows. She knows what recorporations are. She knows which Black River heading where. And why the dead bird moves. And who looks out from behind her husband's eyes? The smell, the burning anthill stench of it. His name, a signature scrawled in acid. His name slams into her mind, and her knees buckle before its awful force. And she thinks, how long have I been married to? And she thinks, how many times did she have sex with him? And she knows that the bad thing is, what the bad thing is and where the stench is coming from. It's her. And she cannot tear the contamination away from her or burn it or smother it with perfume or scrape it from her skin. And her dreams are wreaking unbearable things. And her waking is no relief. Oh God, clothes. Where did I put? Find my clothes. Get out. Get out, get out, get out. Get out quick. Get out quick before... Hello, hun. Hope you don't mind, but I brought some friends home. Oh, that's a scary thought. I want to add her to the Recorporations crew. Oh, no. Come in. I ought to go to the store, get something for dinner. Oh, don't worry about that, Abigail. We'll take you as we find you. That's right. Oh, boy. Your wife looks nervous, Maddie. Yes, you're right. What is it, Ab? What's the matter? Something on your mind? I know who you are. God. Look, please. What do you want me to say, huh? What do we want you to say? Well, that's easy. Oh, no. No, no, no. Well, this will be the third surprise. Just say uncle. He reaches out toward the bird. If it is it still alive? What causes it to writhe and twitch, if not life? Bugs. He saw it move and thought it was alive, but it was full of bugs. It had been full of bugs all the time. Well, that's pretty horrific and presumably symbolic also of Matt. Matt's been perhaps a dead creature who only seems animated. And that's finally been revealed. Next, a halo of flies. Issue number 30. A really great cover by Bissett and Totleben. The returned man smiles, and outside the Louisiana sky soars from rim to rim, curdling the November clouds. The returned man chuckles, and a shock wave of nightmare ripples out across the sleeping continent. And in Lafayette, Jody Herbert comes across the wind passed out in the alleyway. The wino passed out in the alleyway. And Jody has a book of matches in his pocket. And there's nobody else around. And in Alexandria, Tina Louise Pierce says, "The hell with it," and lifts the ancient iron frying pan that her husband is too cheap to replace. Well, it looks like potentially a wave of violence is about to occur in Lafayette. And in Shreveport, Jim and Carol Patterson's pet cat Spock decides that their son Ricky's crib is a warm place to sit. And in Lake Charles, a guide dog suddenly grows irritated with its mistress. On the farm 3 miles west of Crowley's, something terrible is born that cries like a woman and then dies. And in Houma, Abigail Cable just can't stop screaming. And the returned man looks upon his works, and he sees that they are good. A halo of flies. It doesn't even look like Abigail, but I guess it is. And the change here is this is Steve Bissett, and this is inked by Alfredo Aquila. Long-time veteran inker and sometimes penciler for DC, sometimes Marvel. Tons and tons of work. So Ah, but you are pale, my darling, pale. Though not, I think, so pale as we. Be still, my charnel, lily. Do not tremble. Your uncle has a yarn to tell, a joke, a bedtime story, a tale of how it was when I was dead. My eye imploded, and phosphorus shrieked through my arteries. I heard a deafening chord crashed out upon 1,000 harps. There are better ways to loose one's grip from off the throat of life. In other words, a very unpleasant and violent death. It was my failure that shriveled me. Next to this, the scolding embrace of the lightning was as nothing. While reaching for another's flesh in which to drape my intellect, I had been cheated. Cheated by a pawn, a cipher, a thing no more significant than the most despised of beetles. This bug, this worthless speck, had with his death displaced deathless arcane, condemning me to the dusk latitudes, to the cobwebbed lands, to the dismal region of bodiless men. So there is the great revelation. In, I believe, issue 20, the first of Alan Moore's, Swamp Thing just wanted to see Arcane's dead body, make sure he was dead, make sure he was gone. And Arcane was dead and he was gone, and he was able to come back in some form, and he's what's been inhabiting Matt. And he's Abby's uncle, of course. And this bug, this worthless speck, presumably a Swamp Thing. And this horrific vision of hell, as one would hope all visions of hell are. There were so many of them caught there in the fogs of afterlife, their souls too dense and iron-bound to climb toward the light. Poisoners, traitors, tyrants, and torturers. Their evil was massive. It had a gravity, a cold psychic undertow that dragged at my awareness. But I struggled free from fingers without blood or bone or sinew. Struggled free from that malign and treacle-black twilight, making my way back to the bleached hemispheres beyond. Back to my discarded clay, as the serpent will return to the fresh, sloughed skin. It lay there in dirt, so small, so diminished. It was a thing of staring idiot sockets and scorched metal, of melted wires that trailed like ganglia from the perished flesh. I could not wear this travesty. But I was in the world once more. The world that stretched about me like a vast wardrobe filled with half-awake corpses. I would clothe my spirit elsewhere, in whatever rags were available. That would be Matt. You took Matt's body and made him into a monster. Oh God, Matt. Dearest Abigail, your grasp of the inhuman is so limited and shallow. You spare yourself the fullest horror. Long before he loaned his flesh to me, Matthew Joseph Cable was no stranger to monstrosity. Yeah, things were pretty troubled even before the car crash. With him, it was a monstrosity of lust, of aberrations nurtured and weakness indulged. A fluke of the brain had given your husband abilities to shake what gods there be, the power to bend the world and make dreams touchable. He squandered it on trivial and squalid dioramas. Trout-skinned women with the luster of neon, women of smoke, mannequins textured like apricots. No, I'm not listening. No, yes. Certainly my proximity did not hinder his disintegration, but Matthew Cable beat his own path to hell. I merely waited and I watched. Lending my influence to an occasional diversion. So he was behind the Ouija board and the Monkey King that brought Etrigan, the demon, and all of that nightmare that went on at Elysium Lawns. A momentary distraction, a choreographed disaster, the final blow, when struck, came as a stroke of sweetest mercy. He surrendered his flesh willingly and without remorse. Thus your husband's shell is mine to wear, your husband's talents mine to employ. I am arcane. I am returned from the dead, and there is nothing that I cannot do. And the returned man smiles. And in Monroe, Hattie Duplantis remembers how her sister Doreen, now sick and quite helpless, used to torment her as a child. And in Little Rock, Cheryl and Lonnie Williams wait until their father and their slutty new stepmother are asleep before playing with her kitten that he bought her. Oh boy. The kitten is in a microwave. That's really horrific. And in Beaumont, all the tropical fish at the first water pet shop began to eat. First each other, and then themselves. Which is incredibly bizarre. And in Springfield, there's a brief and spectacular plague of ladybugs. And beneath the earth, there are muffled, booming voices. And beneath the ocean, there are terrible lights. And above the sky, a watchman watches. Monitor. I think something's happening in Louisiana. I'm getting a wave portrait around the 800s. The 800s. Let me see. Above 600, we're dealing with power users in the supernatural category. Above 800, we're dealing with either the demon Trigon or the specter. Both of those are currently beyond this continuum, sir. Yes, I know. It's spreading, whatever it is, covering the south and heading north. What should we do? We watch. And the ripples widen across America, shimmering like liquid chromium through the very darkest minds, the desperate, the depraved. And worst of all, they're heading towards Arkham Asylum for the criminally insane, the deranged. And there's Woodrow. Come on, Woodrow. Easy now. The bayou. Coming out of the bayou. What the hell is wrong with them all tonight? Beats me, Mr. Woodrow. Just went berserk and beats me. Mr. Woodrow just went berserk and started up whacking his head against the cell door. Trouble is, anatomy like that, he can say how bad he's hurt himself. How do they expect us to cope with these freaks like these? I had to help sedate Two-Face earlier. Geez, that guy scares me. Oh yeah. You want to see something really scary? There. The Joker stopped laughing. And the waves roll out, swelling upon a fever tide, their blackness unrelieved by foam. It's a very different look for the Joker. And I don't remember if this was done before Killing Joke. I assume it was. This is by Alan Moore and Brian Bolland. And the returned man gestures with a stolen hand and dismisses his servants. And then goes out walking, shirtless, in the freezing fog. And after a while, it begins to snow. Another beautiful full page by Steve Bissett. A swamp thing in the snow. Holland. Explosion. Matthew Cable no longer exists. Guess again. Arcane. I am returned, and the energies that churn within me are as limitless as my very great need for revenge. Then why does one so powerful waste so much time with talk? Because your eventual destruction is already a fact, accomplished and absolute. And because I desire to see you dance one final, clumsy, desperate waltz. Then kill me now, if you can. I will not dance for you. I have Abigail. And the returned man laughs. And in Huma, a young sailor on shore leave asks Sally Parks to excuse him. It's just that he knows her face from somewhere. Outside Lafayette, Jody Herbert suddenly decides to take a ride up on the bayou. Gus Pritchett gazes out over a schoolyard abandoned to shadow and thinks how swell it is to be back. In Monroe, Hattie Duplantis shudders and resolves to go for a walk rather than think about the mess in the bedroom. And Mark Newell has found a car. And everything bad within 200 miles finds itself heading for Louisiana without knowing why. Oh, this looks like a zombie horde stalking through the snow towards Louisiana. And the returned man walks home to prepare for his many visitors, all coming to Arcane. And the first visitor is Swamp Thing, who's there to try to rescue Abigail. Crick, crick, creak, eek, creak. As he opens the door. It's not going to be this easy. Looks like a planarian worm there at his feet on the steps, which is his biggest fear, really. How long? How long has she been dead? Next, the Brimstone Ballet. These issues are going relatively quickly because they're fairly minimalist in terms of the writing compared to the prior, somewhat more text-heavy issues. But interesting rhythm. Sophisticated suspense. And now it's just being called Swamp Thing instead of Saga of Swamp Thing, but it's still under the DC imprint. This is number 31 from December 1984. So the snow is coming in perfect correlation with December, perhaps Christmas. And I'm reading this in December 2018. It's shocking that it's been that long since this came out. I close my eyes, and she is alive in the private night. Behind my eyelids, the smell of her skin in the diluted autumn sunlight, the fine white hairs upon her neck, upon her arms, and then I open my eyes. Abby is still dead. Behind me, the laughter of my enemy, rattling in another man's throat. His creatures swarm about us, coagulating from the tainted air. She must not remain in this place. His presence corrupts its timbers. The walls are sodden with his vileness. To think I mourned him once when he was dead. One final clumsy, desperate waltz. That is what he promised me. Beneath my fingertips, the banister becomes a rib cage, raw and exposed. I stumble through this crooked house, her cold, still weight crushed to my breast. She must not remain in this place. No matter how grotesque our quadrille may become. The Brimstone Ballet. And this one is actually drawn by Rick Veitch and John Totleben. So kind of a continuing rotating cast that's primarily Bissett and Totleben, but you've seen Rick Veitch, Son McManus, Dan Day, and Alfredo Akela inking. And it just explodes and the brimstone rains down on Swamp Thing as he shields Abby's body. Well, Holland, have you at last learned despair? You did not have to kill her to teach me despair, Arcane. But you have given me a deeper meaning, a deeper understanding of abomination. Oh dear, did she mean so much to you? Never fear, I have some good news. She isn't dead at all. It was a hoax. That breathless carcass that you cradle so protectively, that isn't her. That's just a construct formed with the abilities I stole from Matthew Cable along with his flesh. Aren't you angry at the way you were deceived? Why don't you rip the construct's head off? You know, as a gesture of defiance. You lie. This is Abby. She is dead. Yes, really dead. Wait, where are you going? You can't just walk away, Holland. You haven't heard the best of it yet. You see, she isn't just dead. She's damned, Holland. Damned to hell. Every conceivable way he can torment him. I ripped her soul from her, and it pulsed in my hands, milk white and translucent. And then I hurled it down into the deepest sewers of the afterworld, just to hear it scream. Such is my power, the power to condemn a stainless innocent to the pit. The power to resurrect the guilty dead and dress them in warm new protoplasm. You murdered me, Holland. You and Cryptman and pale, cold Abigail, launching me upon a fleshless odyssey through the dismal waters beyond death. Dark flotsam bobbed upon those tides. I brought some back with me. The cream of the gallows, the aristocracy of hell. They are returned. They are out there now, celebrating their new skin in the darkness. Sally Parks flirting in Huma, 22 years after a police marksman made a small hole in her forehead, a larger one at the back. As pretty and captivating, as psychotic as ever. I'm about to put a ice pick through a man. And Gus Pritchett, plump and fatherly, who smothered children in abandoned refrigerators and went to the electric chair in 1964. And Betty Montclair, who killed herself in a garage after committing a crime that cannot easily be put into words. And Mark Newell and Eric Loveday. They are returned, and they are but the first. It is the apocalypse. He brought back the souls of all of the worst mass murderers and psychotics. My apocalypse. Run, Holland. Run unencumbered, encumbered with your stupid, pointless burden. For For there is no rock to hide you, no beacon of incorruptible goodness to light your way. That would have been Abby, the beacon of incorruptible goodness. No celestial force that watches over us. Well, that may not quite be true. Monitor, what's happening in Louisiana? The screens are going crazy. Monitor, I said, I heard what you said. Please, do not disturb me. I am concentrating. I am attempting to suppress, for the first time in my life, the uncontrollable urge to look away. So the monitor just monitors, much like Marvel's Watcher just watches. But for the first time, for someone so curious about the machinations of the world and of the universe, he's even horrified and disgusted by what he's seeing. So much so that it's even overtaken his curiosity. I must not weaken now. I have made too many mistakes already. Dreams that went unquestioned. I see my uncle over there, talking to my husband. They're inseparable insects, Well, she did say that during that dream. It didn't quite make sense at the time, but now it does. The warnings unheeded. Your parents freed the monkey with a charm spelled out in the random letters on the board. Was there some further fiend that nudged their arm? The answer, madam, is for you to know. The omens ignored. Well, the further fiend was arcane. This is the final battle. I must not weaken now. Aren't you tired, Holland? Tired of all this pointless running? The swamps will not protect you, for this is my world now. These are my swamps, and I do with as I please. You survive at my indulgence, Holland. After all these years, the victory is mine. There is no point in running. There is no need for running. Not now. It's Matt's body, but there's all these disgusting creatures and insects, centipedes for a spine, and all these little slugs and pustules and creatures and things, from his skin. And now he's kind of dissolving into the monster that Arcane was when Matt last saw him. It was pretty hideous. Don't be ridiculous, Holland. What are you talking about? You have made a mistake, Arcane. Things have changed since you were dead. I am not Holland. I am Swamp Thing. I am of the clean earth. I am in my place of power. And you should not have come here. You hurt me. But you have no magic, unless some elemental force. But when I encountered you before, no, Arcane, you have never encountered me before. This is our first battle. Before, he was still psychologically attached to Holland, of course. But now that he's buried Holland's skeleton, he's really put him behind, and he really is his own, if not his own man, his own Swamp Thing. This is our final battle. You claim the earth for your own arcane, yet you have not 1/10 of the earth's power. You mock God. You make the world worthless with your lies. How dare you? And on their way to Louisiana, the dark souls that he had summoned stop in their tracks and stare confused into the churning whiteness. And in Huma, a sailor starts screaming, and Sally Parks doesn't know why, until blood trickles down her cheek and she lifts her hand to investigate. And a mile outside the town premises of Black River Recorporations begin to liquefy and melt, releasing a stench like spoiled meat. And deep within the borrowed flesh of the returned man, something stirs. No! All the facade melting away, and the dead beginning to look dead again. No, not you. Leave me alone. This flesh is mine now. He's desperately trying to reclaim Matt's flesh and appearance. Get out, get out. We made a bargain. No. I'm sorry. Maybe Matt's trying to reclaim his flesh. No, you stole it from me. And then you killed Abby. You were too strong for me challenged before, but now, Matt, Cable, the power is waning. Please, remember the car crash. It's only the power that keeps this body alive. Cable, you fool, you'll kill us both. Good, we both deserve it. Just as long as I get to send you where you sent my wife. Goodbye, Arcane. And maybe in his final act, Matt grew a spine and actually ended a hero. I close my eyes, I look away. Behind my eyelids in the private night, I hear the scream of my enemy. He is falling, his unclean spirit, too torn, too battered to resist that terrible gravity. And in his eyes, the dreadful knowledge, the knowledge of what waits for him below. And then he is gone, and there is only Matt. Hello, Alec. Arcane is gone. But you are hurt. These wounds that open. I'm dying. It's for the best. After what I let him do. Matt, he possessed you. His was the only evil. No, I let him. I was weak. There isn't any evil, Alec. No special blackness reserved for demons and monsters. There's just weakness. I had a choice. Matt, you're rambling. Your power. Can't you repair yourself? Perhaps. Enough power to repair one. But I don't want to live. And it isn't me that needs repairing. Abby, Matt, do you mean that you could? I don't know. I might. Her cells. Some decomposition. Have to reverse it. And the blood. No. No, too weak. Have to increase anticoagulants, make it flow again. The heart. Have to move the heart. Yes. It's beating in the lungs. In, out, in, out. If I can only reach her soul. So close, his fingertips are almost touching hers. It's pretty grim that her face is, her eyes are empty, her lips are white. But then this tentacle is pulling her hand back down. I'm sorry, Alec. I'm so very sorry. Well, if he restored Abby to life, it may be incumbent upon Swamp Thing or someone else to restore her soul. What a night. You remember a night like this, Bobby? No, I don't remember a night like this. Me neither. Thought we was never going to get that sailor in the drunk tank. All that stuff about women with holes in their head? Fruitcake. Yeah. What about all those people Teddy and Earl picked up on the interstate? Little kitties walking about in the snow? Jeez. What is it, Bobby? Why'd you pull over? Is it... Oh, Lordy. This guy's been in some kind of accident, all right. He ain't hardly breathing. Got steering column fractures, the works. Looks that way, but where's his car? Okay, so... We stumble upon Matt. Night like this, who gives a damn? Come on, let's get him in the car. Maybe we can get him to the hospital in time. Yeah, geez, look at all this blood. I only just got through cleaning it up after the sailor. She lies where I left her. She breathes. Her heart beats. But a heartbeat is not a woman. A breath is not Abby. Her breast moves, but is empty. There is no one there. The tears come. I close my eyes. And when I open them, Abby is still dead. Continued in the second Swamp Thing annual, which is the very next issue. Down Amongst the Dead Men. Next issue, Pog. And another beautiful full-page splash of Swamp Thing in the bayou with a lot of different coloration effects here. And that's going to conclude part 3, segment 3 of my Swamp Thing reading. Hope you've enjoyed it so far. These issues moved along pretty quickly, and pick up again very soon with part 4. And feel free to like and comment if you enjoyed it or if you didn't enjoy it, or if you have any comments about Alan Moore's work or Steve Bissette's or John Totlebin's or Swamp Thing in general. So thanks very much and see you next time. Bye.